How did you become involved with the Pistoia Alliance?
I've really been involved with Pistoia for a long time now. I started off at Cubist, where I was running a cheminformatics and compound management group. I became involved through Labs of the Future, but also AI, which is my background, and data. And the first meeting I went to, formal meeting, I'd been invited to be a judge on the President's Challenge, which was a competition between startups that was held in the past in the Boston meeting. So I got more involved after that. We joined a few projects and started supporting the teams. And then over the years, I've brought a couple of companies into the Pistoia Alliance where I've worked and become more involved with various things along the way. It's, the thing that appealed to me is I've generally worked in R&D, sometimes in later stages, but generally in the earlier stages. And that's really Pistoia's sweet spot, but it's broad. It's not a single focused area like a lot of the other collaborations. So I looked into another number of organizations, particularly when it was my own budget I was spending, but it always came out that Pistoia was kind of the one to join for that breadth and that impact.
So in what ways do your own goals and values align with the Pistoia Alliances?
As I said, I've always worked on the data side. I've worked in R&D a lot, but I've also spent a bit of time in IT. Pistoia Alliance is focused on that area, but in terms of goals, I've found, even when I've been offered roles as individual contributors, I found you work better as a group. You work better collaborating. And there's so much in pharma that you don't have to waste the resources of every company doing it individually by themselves. There's no competitive advantage really with complying with agency mandates, with looking into ethics, with how we organize the data. And so it's really that efficiency, that push to actually get further with eventually getting drugs to market and helping patients. I think everybody in the industry thinks that is the ultimate goal. How do we do it? You can be quite disconnected if you're very early on, you're very connected if you're late in it. But doing that efficiently, moving more quickly, rather than spending tens of years in trials and approvals, if we can accelerate that by even a year or two, get drugs that save lives to patients more quickly, that's of value. And, it's only a little bit that we're doing at Pistoia, but I do believe that collaboration will help everybody in the industry and, society in the end.
So what interested you in a career in life sciences? Take me back a bit to those formative years.
Yeah, I can take you back a fair way. So, growing up, actually, my dad taught science, my mum taught maths. And even when I was really young at primary school, I got a ZX81 and was involved in the computer, setting up the computer club at the time. But I always enjoyed science, chemistry, physics, less so biology, actually, which is probably why my bias is towards the chemistry side of things. But putting those two things together kind of got me involved. And I worked a little bit in ag chem. What really kicked me off, though, was a summer job I had at British Biotechnology, just outside of Oxford, under a guy called Ed Hodgkin, who's still around in the industry now. And it was really interesting. We were doing work with data. We published our results. Other people started using it and incorporating it. And I realized, one, this interests me. It's a challenge. It's going to continue to be a challenge. But then it also goes back to it really actually can have a benefit to society as well. So, if you can do something that stimulates you personally, as well as contributing to society, then, I think you're on a winner there for a good career. And frankly, I've enjoyed my career. There've been ups and downs like everybody, but it's nice to know you work in an industry that is actually doing good and you're stimulated and challenged every day.
Okay, let's go outside of industry and profession. What interests you in your life? What interests you as a person?
I'm really big on a few things, particularly around the house, cooking and eating. Yeah, really, I learned to cook because I love to eat and drink and socialize, and and be with people. So we share the cooking at home. I will tend to do when we have people round and events and things like that. And I love holding just even everything from casual barbecues to more formal dinner parties. Enjoy that. And the barbecues, we bought a house when we were over living in Boston. We bought one here back in London. We've got a small garden, but a nice garden. And both my wife and I, we enjoy sitting out playing with the dog in the back garden and doing gardening. So yeah, a little bit of a homeboy, really. But I'd say cooking and eating is probably my number one hobby.
How about computers? Are you still interested in those? Perhaps because they've advanced so much over the past 30, 40 years. Do you do gaming at all?
No, I don't do gaming actually, but I do actually develop some of my own AI algorithms for a number of things at home. So I've got a machine learning method for predicting football results, which I run a modestly successful betting pool that I run on. It's only my money. That does reasonably well. You're only looking for a 10% margin. Do similarly with investing, and just play with data a lot. So yes, I do a lot of that. I'm not a computer gamer. I do other types of games, love card games, board games, that sort of stuff. But no, never got into computer gaming really.
But my own team aren't doing particularly well, so maybe you could let me know when Everton are likely to win a game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, actually, Everton, think we've had a few predicted wins recently. I
Oh,
support
good.
West Ham, so I know where you are. As a West Ham supporter, we're not doing great either. So
Yeah, well, we got that in common, I guess. That and
yes.
David Moyes. So, yeah. Okay, so how did the skills that you picked up in computing and your love of food and cooking as well, the skills learned there, how do they help with overcoming the everyday challenges in your line of work?
Actually, the role now isn't that dissimilar to my last few roles in industry because I've got the background, I've got the technical experience, but my last few roles have been at more executive levels, leading teams, pulling people together. But even within industry, when you've got your own team, you can't do anything just by yourself. You have to collaborate. You have to pull in other groups. So, at Janssen, I was leading data, informatics, and systems for development within R&D, but we had to collaborate with the scientists in the various groups that we work with. We had to collaborate with manufacturing to pull everyone in. And that's really what this current role is doing. So I've got, fortunately, the technical background. I can understand certainly all of the data, all of the AI type stuff. I've also got experience more in the clinical space and real world data as well. But it's around that organization. And frankly, that's where actually the cooking comes in as well. I'm not a baker, so I don't follow instructions step by step, but you do have to prepare, you do have to plan, you do have to schedule and be willing to adapt. And I think those skills definitely play. Once you get to this sort of organization or this sort of level within industry, yes, you have to know the scientific side, you have to know the technical side and have a good breadth of understanding, but it's really about working with people and dealing with people, to some extent knowing what you don't know as well. And so, within Pistoia, as within companies, we pull in experts. We rely on members to contribute, to say what is needed, to say what needs to be done to address that problem. And that's, another thing that appealed to me with Pistoia, that it's very much a member-led organization. At Shire and then Takeda, I was sat within the IT organization. And unfortunately, you see quite often shiny new technology coming in. And I call it the old shiny effect, where you've suddenly got this new thing that is a solution looking for a problem. That's the wrong way to address it. And a member-led organization like Pistoia works how I like to work. Yes, you have people who have the expertise and the knowledge of these new technologies and new science, but you're addressing real problems. You're not a solution looking for a problem, you're a problem looking for a solution.
Okay, How do you apply that experience then thus far to inspire and perhaps motivate those around you, those who are joining the alliance, perhaps?
Yeah, and we've actually had a couple of new companies joining, including Kyowa Kirin out of Japan, where we're looking to expand our global reach. Um, we really inspire them by getting engaged, by showing what we are doing, what we can do, and what people have contributed in. So that's the first one. But also, we communicate very much how we work as a team, how they're welcome to submit ideas, how our associates will then work with their people to develop those ideas and check how interested is the rest of the community. One big thing about Pistoia, it is very much collaboration. And so we don't allow a single company to come in and say, right, we're doing this project with Pistoia. It's not about the money. It's not about that. It's really around, is there a consensus that this is important? Are there people across the industry willing to collaborate? I know it's a bit trite, but we often repeat, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We really aim to take these things through to the end, to go far and to provide benefits across the industry. We're not looking to be a contracting organization to work for any one individual company.
Okay, you mentioned there what the alliance has done, what it is doing. Do you think new members join with a view of what can be done too?
There is, yes. We definitely have some members that join with specific ideas. So a year or so ago, my predecessor polled the industry, and we came up with strategic priorities, and it's really four of them around data driving value, harnessing AI, the use of real world data, and then sustainably driven R&D. So we're working in those areas, and we're particularly encouraging input and new ideas in those areas because we don't claim to know anything. But if a member comes along with something outside those areas as well, absolutely, we'll talk to them, we'll expand and develop the idea. But in the end, it comes down to more than just them being interested. And I think that development of ideas is really important within the organization. And a lot of ideas drop by the wayside before they get to a full project and get to deliverables. But it's by trying things that we really improve that innovation, and we try and be welcoming with new companies coming in with new ideas as well.
Okay, given the advances in medicine that have happened in our lifetimes, what does that future look like for global life science partnerships?
I think it's making partnerships more and more important, because there's so much change, and there's change in the technology. You look at things like AI over the last couple of years, but there's change in the science with cell therapies, gene therapies. All of that change actually makes collaboration more important, because imagine, even if you just look at the top 20 pharma, and we cover a lot more than that, um, each company go off and develop its own AI ethics and security policy to work with the agencies individually on what models can be accepted, to individually work out how do we process and store cell therapies data. That's a waste, that's inefficient. And with all the mergers, acquisitions, sales within the industry as well, it makes that whole process less efficient and introduces risk when there's data translation. So these common areas where we as Pistoia represent the industry to agencies in policy and things like that really breeds that efficiency, and that efficiency is more important in times of change and innovation than it is when things are very stable. So I think it's obviously a huge opportunity for the industry as a whole. And here I'm talking both vendors and the supply side, because we also have them as members of the Pistoia Alliance as well as pharma, but particularly for pre-competitive collaborations. And as I say, it's the breadth of focus within Pistoia, the fact that we cover all of R&D. Yes, we're focused on what is pre-competitive, but also we drink our own Kool-Aid. We actually say, if there's another organization that's focused on this area that's doing it better than us, right, let's either collaborate with them or let's direct the efforts there, because we don't want to compete with other groups doing similar things.